The woman behind the smiley cameras had stopped rolling, but the echoes of laughter still clung to the set like dust in sunlight. The crew was packing up, wires coiling, lights dimming, footsteps soft on the floor. The air smelled like coffee, makeup, and old wood. It was one of those quiet, tired evenings after a long shoot when most people had already disappeared into their own lives. Keanu Reeves was about to leave too. He had one hand on his leather jacket, the other reaching for his keys, but something pulled at him. A strange stillness on set. A presence turned. She was sitting alone at the far edge of the soundstage, where the painted skyline met fake cobblestones. Ana de Armas. The bright, beautiful face from the film now stripped of lights and lines. Her posture was small, folded. Her phone rested untouched beside her. Her fingers pressed into the sleeves of her hoodie. And though she stared into the empty stage, she wasn't really looking at anything. Keanu froze. He'd seen her all day, laughing with the crew, nailing takes, helping the extras, even cheering up the young makeup artist who'd spilled her brush. Kit, but now it was like the actress had stepped out of her role and melted into someone else. Someone quiet, someone sad. He walked toward her slowly. No script, no cameras. Just something real pulling at his heart. "Hey," he said gently, standing a few feet away so she didn't feel cornered. "You okay?" She startled, her body tightening. Then she smiled too quickly, too brightly. "Yeah," she said. "Tired." He tilted his head. "That kind of tired, or the other kind?" She let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh. "You're good at that." "I've had practice," he said. "You want me to sit?" She hesitated for just a second, then nodded. "Sure." He sat beside her, careful to leave space. Silence hung between them, but not the awkward kind. The human kind. The kind you don't rush. Finally she whispered, "I hate that I can't tell anyone when I'm not okay." His eyes softened. "Why not?" "Because people don't want to hear it. They want the version of me that smiles and jokes and posts. Pretty pictures. If I tell them I'm hurting, it makes them uncomfortable." "You're allowed to hurt," he said. "You're human." She looked down at her hands. "But it feels like I'm failing, like I should be stronger." His head? "Strength isn't pretending nothing hurts. Real strength is telling the truth and still getting up the next day." Her lip trembled, and she quickly wiped her eyes. "I didn't think anyone saw. I thought I was hiding it well." Keanu looked at her, steady and kind. "Anna, sometimes it's not about how well you hide the pain. It's about whether anyone cares enough to look beyond the smile." She blinked. No one had ever said that to her. "Not like that," he continued. "I've had days like that too. Years even. I used to think if I just kept working, if I kept being useful, maybe the ache inside would go away. Did it? But then someone sat beside me and didn't try to fix me. They just listened. And somehow, that made the ache quieter. They sat in silence again. This time, it was softer. Then she said, "I got a message today. From someone I used to know. Someone who made me feel small. They saw a photo of me in a magazine and said, 'Funny how makeup hides the truth.'" Her voice cracked on the last. Word got. Keanu didn't flinch, didn't rush to comfort or change the subject. He just let it sit. Anna kept going, quietly, like opening a wound she'd kept bandaged too long. "They used to say my eyes were too far apart. My jaw was weird, that I looked better when I didn't speak. Left that behind years ago, or I thought I did. But when I saw their name on my screen, everything just came back." She looked at him, raw. "Why does something you escaped still feel like it owns part of you?" Keanu nodded slowly. "Because trauma doesn't care about time, doesn't care how successful or loved you are. It just waits in the dark, hoping you'll forget it's there. And then it whispers." Anna pressed her palms into her eyes. "I'm so tired of pretending." "Then don't," he said. "Not with me." She dropped her hands. "You really mean that?" "I do," he said. "I?" "And I don't think less of you. I think more." "Why?" Her shoulders dropped, like she'd been holding the weight of 1,000 invisible expectations. Then something surprising happened. She laughed. Not the kind of laugh that covers pain, but the kind that comes from letting go of it for a second. "You're different," she said. "Most people would have just said don't listen to them and walked away." Keanu smiled gently. "I don't want to be most people." The set around them faded into shadow. The only light now came from a flickering overhead bulb and the faint glow of her phone screen. Anna picked it up, stared at the hateful message for a moment, and then deleted it. "I don't need to keep proof of what hurt me," she said. "Double quotes, no," Keanu replied. "You only need to keep what helps you heal." She nodded. Double quotes. "Will you let me walk you out?" he asked. "Yes," she said, standing up. "But only if we stop for coffee on the way. Something about this night deserves warmth." They walked toward the exit side by side. No cameras, no entourage. Just two humans choosing kindness. What neither of them knew yet was that this quiet conversation would ripple far beyond the walls of that film set, because tomorrow, Anna would do something that would shake the world. And Keanu would be the reason why. The post that lit a fire the next morning. The city hummed like it always did. Cars buzzing through traffic, baristas shouting orders. People glued to their screens chasing time. The world didn't know what had happened on that quiet film set. The night before, no one had seen the way Anna's shoulders finally relaxed. No one had heard the words that softened something fragile inside her, but something had shifted, and that shift was about to spread like wildfire. Anna sat on her balcony, wrapped in a gray blanket, holding a steaming cup of coffee. Her eyes were still puffy from the tears she hadn't meant to cry, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like hiding them. Her phone was on the table beside her. She picked it up, hesitated, and opened her notes app. Her fingers hovered above the screen for a second. Then she began to type. No filters, no glamour, no quotes trying to sound wise. It's just truth. "Last night, someone reminded me that I don't have to hide my pain to be strong. I've spent so much time pretending, smiling, showing up when I felt broken inside. But I want to be real, even if that means being messy, vulnerable, and not always put together. If you're reading this and feel like you have to hide your truth to be accepted, please know you're not alone. You deserve kindness even from yourself, especially from yourself." She sat with it for a while, unsure. Then, before her doubt could talk her out of it, she posted it with a bare-faced photo, eyes still red. No caption other than a single word, enough. At first there was silence. Then the ripples began. Hundreds of comments poured in, and thousands. "Thank you for saying what I couldn't. I thought I was the only one who felt this way. Your honesty saved me today. This is the most beautiful thing you've ever shared." People shared their own stories, scars, trauma, exhaustion, quiet victories. Her post became a gathering place for truth, and somewhere in a coffee shop across the city, Keanu Reeves scrolled through his phone and saw it. His thumb paused on her photo. No makeup, no acting, just her. He smiled quietly, not the kind of smile that says, "Good job," but the kind that says, "I see you." The barista called his name, grabbed his drink, tucked his phone into his jacket, and stepped into the street. Not knowing that the world was already beginning to talk, by afternoon, Anna's post was trending. Major outlets picked it up, influencers reshared it with captions like, "This is what real courage looks like." Mental health advocates praised her. Even celebrities who rarely posted commented with their own moments of honesty. But the attention brought something else to criticism. Just doing this for attention. Why now? Why not before? What does she know about pain? She's rich and famous. Anna read those too at first. Her heart sank. It felt like every wound she'd tried to close was suddenly on display, and some people were pointing at it with mockery instead of empathy. She closed her laptop and walked into her kitchen, trying to breathe through the spiral. But the doubt crept in again. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. Maybe I made it worse. Her hands trembled as she poured water into a glass, and then her phone buzzed. A message from Keanu. "Don't let the noise drown the truth. You were brave. You were kind. I'm proud of you. She stared at the words. One sentence stood out like a beam of light. I'm proud of you. Her breathing slowed. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of those words settle over her like armor. She wrote back, "Thank you." I didn't expect it to reach so many people. His reply came seconds later. Sometimes the truth travels faster than the lie. It just needs someone brave enough to speak it first. The next day, Anna got a call from her agent. "You might want to sit down," the agent said. "You're being asked to speak at the Voices Rising Summit in New York." "What?" Anna blinked. "Isn't that for mental health advocates, educators, artists who've made an impact? And you just did?" Anna sat on the edge of her couch. Her hands were sweating. "I'm not qualified for that," she whispered. "You are," the agent said. Keanu's name came up too. "They want both of you." Anna's heart skipped. Did he agree? He said he'll go if you go? For a long moment, she just stared at the floor. Fear and wonder braided tightly inside her. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll go." 2 weeks later, the lights in the conference room were bright and clinical, but the energy in the room was anything but cold. People from all walks of life filled the seats: therapists, parents, survivors, teenagers. Teachers. Anna sat backstage, her hands gripping her. Speech, legs bouncing with nerves. Keanu sat beside her, calm and steady. "You don't have to be perfect," he said. "You just have to be real." "What if my voice shakes?" she asked. "Then they'll know it matters to you." "What if I forget what to say?" "Then speak from the heart." Anna looked at him. "You really believe I can do this?" Nodded. "I don't just believe it, I see it." A stage manager waved. "You're on in 5. Anna stood up. Her knees wobbled slightly, but she took a deep breath. "Let's do this," she said. Keanu smiled. "Go show them what truth looks like." When she stepped on stage, the room hushed. She stood in front of the mic, clutching her paper, but then slowly lowered it. Her eyes scanned the room faces, waiting, and then she spoke. Not with the polished tone of a performer, but with the shaking, sacred voice of someone telling the truth for the first time. "I spent years thinking pain was something to hide. That if I smiled big enough, worked hard enough, maybe I could outrun the things that hurt me." The room was still, but pain doesn't leave when you hide it. It just gets quiet. Until it doesn't. Anna looked down, then back up. "Someone reminded me that being real doesn't make me weak. It makes me human, and maybe that's enough." When she stepped back, the room exploded into applause. Not polite applause, not forced, but it's the kind that comes from people who've seen a piece of their own story in someone else's voice. As she returned backstage, Keanu stood waiting. She didn't say a word. She just stepped into his arms and let herself breathe. What neither of them knew was that someone in that audience had recorded the speech. And by morning, the whole world would be watching it, and Anna's life would never be the same again. The letter that shook Hollywood's video of Anna's speech spread faster than wildfire. By sunrise, it had already been viewed over 10 million times. By noon, the hashtags #TruthLooksBeautiful and #Anna and Keanu were trending in 23 countries. People weren't just sharing it, they were stopping in the middle of their workdays to cry over it. Teenagers played it for their parents. His therapists used it to open up hard conversations in group sessions. Even celebrities who never posted about anything personal reshared it with one-word captions like "needed." Anna sat curled on her couch, still in pajamas, as her phone buzzed non-stop. She had no makeup on. Her hair was tied messily. She was just herself, the same girl who had felt invisible only days ago. And now, the world wasn't just seeing her. They were hearing her, but with attention came pressure. Some reporters called it the speech that healed a generation. Others called it calculated vulnerability. And a few cruel voices asked the question that made Anna's chest tighten. But what does she really have to cry about? She stared at the screen, her thumb trembling above the comments section. Then she locked her phone and stood up. Her mind was racing, her chest tightening. She walked into the bathroom, looked into the mirror, and whispered, "Am I allowed to feel what I feel?" For a long time, The girl in the mirror didn't answer. Then, she remembered Keanu's voice in her head. Real strength is telling the truth and still getting up the next day. So she took a breath, walked back to her desk, and opened her journal, and she began to write a letter. Not for likes, not for headlines. For herself and for anyone who had ever been told they were too emotional, too dramatic, or too privileged to suffer. When she finished, she posted it as an open letter online. To the person who thinks their pain doesn't count because someone else has it worse, your pain still matters. This isn't a competition, it's a conversation. No one wins when we stay silent. I've learned that hiding doesn't heal. Truth does. So here's mine. I've been hurt. I've been judged. I've smiled when I wanted to scream. But I've also learned that one kind voice can change everything. For me, that voice came from a friend named Keanu. He saw me. Really saw me. And now, I want to be that voice for someone else. It ended with a single line that stopped people mid-scroll. You don't need permission to be human. The response was staggering. Celebrities reached out privately, some crying as they shared things they'd never said out loud. Fans wrote letters to their younger selves. Forums across the internet lit up with raw honesty. But there was one message. That made Anna sit very still when she read it. It was from an unknown. Email account, subject, I owe you the truth. She hesitated, then opened it. I was the one who sent you that cruel message about your makeup. I don't know if you remember me. We were friends once. Maybe not really friends. I was jealous of you back then. Of your beauty, your fire. I saw you rising and it made me feel smaller. So I tried to shrink you when I saw your face. In that magazine, I didn't see a human. I saw a mirror that reminded me I hadn't chased my own dreams. I'm sorry, not just for what I said, but for who I was. You didn't deserve that. It's your words. That made me look in the mirror. For the first time in years, thank you for your truth. It's changing more than you know, Anna read. The message 3 times, then she cried. Not because it hurt, because it healed. Later that evening, Anna met Keanu for tea at a small hidden garden cafe he liked. No cameras, no fans, just wooden benches. Warm lights and the smell of jasmine in the air. You look lighter, he said as she sat down. I feel it, she said, but also scared. Of what? Of messing it up, of being misunderstood, of suddenly being this symbol. I never asked to be. He nodded. It's heavy, isn't it? Yes. Keanu stirred his tea. You don't have to carry the whole world, just your part of it. But what if my part is too much? Right. Then you let someone help you carry it. She smiled softly. Like you did for me? He didn't answer with words. Just reached out and gently tapped the side of her teacup with his own. A quiet cheers. She took a sip. The steam rose between them like a silent understanding. I got a message, she said, from the person who sent that cruel text. Yeah, they apologized. Keanu looked at her. How did that feel? Like a chapter closing. Not perfectly, but honestly. He nodded. Sometimes that's the only way things close. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't the silence of something broken. It was the silence of something growing. The next week, Anna got another call. This one was from a major university. They wanted her to speak at a student mental health summit. Why me? She asked. The organizer said, because the students picked you? Anna agreed, heart pounding. But this time, she wasn't afraid of her voice shaking. She was ready for it, and the night before the event, she called Keanu. You busy tomorrow? She asked. Depends, he said. What's happening? I'm speaking again. You want me there? She smiled, even though he couldn't see her. Only if you want to be. I'll be there, he said. And he was. When she took the stage that afternoon, hundreds of students rose to their feet. Not because she was famous, but because she had become something else entirely. It's a mirror for their own pain. A voice that sounded like theirs. A reminder that even the most beautiful faces can carry invisible weight. And when she spoke, this time, with no paper, no plange, just heart, her words landed like truth always does, gently, powerfully, .unforgetably, and somewhere in the back. Keanu watched with quiet pride, knowing something few people did. That one night on an empty set, kindness had saved someone, and now she was saving others. The shadow behind the Praisieth world had fallen in love with Anna's honesty. Her speech was now required viewing in college classrooms, her posts shared across continents, her words quoted in therapy circles and boardrooms alike. The media called her a modern voice of healing. But behind the screens, behind the applause and hashtags, something darker began to stir. One quiet morning, Anna sat in her living room, with her phone buzzing beside her. A friend had just sent a link to a new article. The headline hit like a punch. Anna, armas, emotional honesty or strategic branding. Her fingers trembled as she tapped it open. The article accused her of crafting a sob story to revive her career, of using pain as a marketing tool, of hiding behind vulnerability to avoid criticism. It was written in sharp, cold sentences, no empathy, no curiosity, judgment. Beneath the article were thousands of comments. I knew it was fake. Just another actress playing victim. It's all for attention. Anna felt her throat tighten. The air in the room thickened. Her hands went cold. She thought about deleting the app, locking the door, disappearing for a while. But instead, she reached for her phone and called Keanu. He answered after one ring. You saw it? She asked, voice small. I did. Is it true? She whispered. Did I share too much? Did I make a mistake? His voice didn't waver. Anna, no one gets to define your truth but you. The people who want to tear you down. They're afraid of what honesty makes them feel, so they try to silence it. But what if they're right? She said, tears rising. Then let's talk about it, he said. Come over. Now. An hour later, she sat on the floor of his apartment, legs crossed, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. The place was simple, filled with warm light and old books. There was nothing performative here, just safety. Keanu poured tea and sat beside her. You didn't do anything wrong, he said. But they're saying I know what they're saying, but you don't owe your healing to their approval. You shared something real, and the world responded with love. Now the ones who are uncomfortable with that love are trying to twist it. Anna looked down. It still hurts. It's supposed to, he said. That means you're still human. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I don't know how you do it, she whispered. You've been famous for so long. How do you survive people saying things that aren't true about you? Keanu looked out the window for a moment before answering. Stopped chasing approval. I started chasing peace. But how? By remembering that the people who really matter, they see the whole me, not the headline, not the version that sells, the real me. Anna looked at him. You're one of those people now, he said gently. For so many others, her breath caught. But what if I'm not strong enough for it? He leaned in, eyes warm. Then lean on someone. We don't have to carry every storm alone. That night, Anna made a decision. She opened her laptop, stared at the blinking cursor on her blog, and started typing. Not a defense, not a fight, just truth. Some say I shared my story for attention. Some say I'm not allowed to hurt because I have success. I understand. We live in a world where vulnerability scares people. But here's what I've learned. Telling the truth doesn't make you manipulative. Feeling pain doesn't make you dramatic. Being seen doesn't mean you're pretending. I shared my story because I couldn't keep it in anymore. And if that story made one person feel less alone, then it was worth it. Within hours, it became one of the most shared posts of the year. Not because it was perfectly written, but because it was real. People flooded her inbox. Strangers, teachers, parents, even critics who had once doubted her, now whispered apologies. And deep in the city, a reporter from the very outlet that had first mocked her story sent a quiet message. I've written about hundreds of people. I've never been wrong until now. You made me remember why I started writing in the first place, to tell stories that matter. Thank you for reminding me. Anna stared at the message, and she smiled. A few weeks later, Anna and Keanu were invited to a private panel at an independent film school. The students had requested it themselves. "We want to hear how real stories can change the world." One student had said. Anna stood backstage with Keanu once again. "They think I'm brave," she said, voice shaking. "Doll, I feel as exposed." "Exposed is where the light gets in," he said. "You taught me that." "I did." He nodded. "You reminded me that healing isn't a one-time thing. It's a choice we make every day." Anna smiled. "What if tomorrow I don't feel strong?" "Then I'll remind you again." He stepped out on stage together. No script, no barriers, just two people who had chosen kindness over silence, and the students didn't just applaud. They stood up, because what they saw wasn't fame, it was truth. Afterward, a girl named Emily approached them, barely 19, hands shaking. "I just wanted to say, I was planning to drop out. Didn't think I had anything worth saying. But your story, it made me believe I could write again." Anna bent down, held her hands, and said softly, "Don't ever let the world convince you that your truth is too small. It's not. It's yours, and that makes it powerful." Emily cried, and Anna held her, and Keanu stood quietly beside them, his eyes full, knowing exactly what was happening. Another light had just been lit. Another storm had just found shelter, and it all started with a quiet conversation on a quiet set. When one person saw the truth and another end stayed. The moment that broke the silence had passed. Anna was no longer just a name in films. She had become something else, a voice, a presence, a symbol of truth for people who had forgotten how to speak it. Yet with every step forward, the weight on her shoulders grew heavier. Every message she received carried someone else's pain. "You gave me courage. Your story saved my daughter. I haven't smiled in years, but you gave me a reason to try." "Anna, read them all." She answered as many as she could. But late at night, after the world had quieted, she sometimes sat alone and wondered, who takes care of the one who tries to take care of everyone else? Keanu saw it. In the way her laughter became quieter, in the way she paused longer before stepping onto a stage. She still showed up, but the spark behind her eyes flickered at times. He didn't push. He waited until one evening. After an interview, she stayed behind in the empty studio, her hands gripping the edge of the makeup table. The room was dark, except for the bulbs around the mirror, and she was staring into her reflection like it was a stranger. Keanu watched from the doorway for a few seconds, then stepped forward. "You okay?" She didn't answer. He walked beside her, saw the tension. In her face, her hands were clenched. "Talk to me," he said softly. Anna turned. Her eyes filled instantly. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. He nodded, not asking why. "Just listening. People think I'm strong," she said. "They think I have answers, but I still cry in the shower. I still wake up afraid. I still feel like that girl who wasn't enough." Her voice cracked. What if this whole thing was a mistake? What if I don't have anything left to give?" Keanu knelt beside her chair, gently with quiet reverence. "Then let me hold space for you," he said. "You don't always have to give. You're allowed to just be." She looked at him, fragile and raw. "But I don't want to let people down." "Anna," he said, "being human is not a disappointment. It's a gift. And the people who truly love you will still be here when you're quiet." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I miss being invisible sometimes," she whispered. "You can be invisible with me," he said. "You don't have to be anything you're not." For the first time in weeks, she let her guard drop completely. And in that small, dim room, Anna allowed herself to cry not the pretty tears of a public figure, but the deep, trembling sobs of a woman who had held everyone else's pain for too long. And Keanu didn't speak. He just stayed. The next morning, Anna sent out a message to her followers. "I need to step away for a little while, not because I'm broken, but because I'm healing. Truth doesn't disappear when we rest. Sometimes silence is part of the story too. Thank you for walking with me. I'll return when my heart is full again." The internet responded with surprising grace. Messages of support flooded in. "Rest is strength. We'll be here when you're ready." Thank you for showing us it's okay to pause. For the first time, Anna felt like she could breathe without explaining herself. She left the city that weekend and drove north with Keanu. No plans, no schedules. Just quiet roads and thick trees and wind that didn't ask for anything. They stayed in a cabin. By a lake. No Wi-Fi, no phones, just two people making coffee in silence. Reading old books and letting the world move without them for once. On the second night, they sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets. Stars shimmered above, and the lake was still. Anna whispered, Do you think I'll ever be the same again? Keanu looked at her, his eyes soft in the firelight. I hope not. He said. She blinked. You've grown, he continued. You've changed. You've hurt and healed and stretched your soul. Why would you want to go back to who you were? She looked at the fire. Because she didn't carry so much. She also didn't know how strong she was, and it was quiet for a while. Then she said, I used to think the goal was to be loved. Now I think it's to be seen. And you are, he said. By the right people, in the right way. Nodded, her eyes glistening. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For never asking me to be more than I am. He smiled. Or more, you just don't have to prove it. On their last morning at the lake, Anna stood at the edge of the dock, wind brushing through her hair. Her face was calm, peaceful. She pulled out her notebook and wrote something new. Not for the world, just for her. I don't need applause to know I matter. I don't need noise to feel alive. Healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And in this silence I found myself again. She tore the page out, folded it gently, and placed it under a smooth stone near the water's edge. Ready to go? Keanu asked from behind her. She turned. Yeah, she said. But this time, I'm not running from anything. I'm walking towards something. He nodded, and together they left the quiet behind, not as people trying to be something for others, but as humans who had remembered the value of stillness. What they didn't know yet is that a storm was coming, not one of pain but of purpose, and the whole world was about to watch. The story that changed everything. 2 months had passed since Anna stepped away from the spotlight. No red carpets, no interviews, no posts. Just peace. In the quiet, she had begun to heal, not just from the wounds others left behind, but from the pressure she had placed on herself. The need to be perfect, to be strong, to be worthy, and yet, while she rested, something unexpected happened. Her words kept traveling. Teachers printed her posts and pinned them to classroom walls. Nurses quoted her at night shifts in hospital lounges. Soldiers tucked her speech into their bags. Teenagers used her letter as inspiration in school essays. Her silence had not made her disappear. It had made her unforgettable. One morning, Keanu handed her a brown envelope at breakfast. You should read this, he said gently. What is it? Just open it. Anna peeled it open and pulled out a letter written in neat, careful handwriting. Dear Anna, my name is Sophia. I'm 12. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I saw your video in school. Before that, I thought I was weak because I cried a lot. But when you said it was okay to feel things, something in me opened. My mom says I smile more now. I even spoke up in class last week. I want to be like you, not because you're famous, but because you're kind. Thank you for showing me that truth is beautiful. Love, Sophiana covered her mouth. The tears came quickly, not heavy or sad. Just full. Keanu reached over, gently placed his hand on hers. They're still listening. He said, even when you're quiet. She looked at him through watery eyes. I want to do something. Not for cameras, not for media, not something real. Then let's start, he said. 2 weeks later, Anna and Keanu walked into a small, old theater. Downtown, the building had chipped paint, squeaky doors, and the smell of forgotten stories. Anna looked around. You sure this is the place? I'm sure, Keanu said. This was the first theater I ever performed in. It gave me something when I had nothing. Anna walked to the center of the dusty stage, spun around slowly. It's perfect. Called it the quiet stage. A place where people young, old, known, unknown could come and share their stories. Raw, unfiltered, unmolish. No costumes, no need to impress, just truth. They started small, 30 chairs, broken mic, handwritten posters. But word spread fast. Within weeks, the theater was packed. A janitor who had never spoken in front of a crowd read a poem about losing his wife. A teenager performed a monologue about surviving bullying. A young woman whispered her story of growing up in silence. An elderly man read a letter he had written to his younger self. And on one quiet night, Anna stepped on stage once again. No lights, no press. Just the people. She stood before them and said, "I used to think stories had to be perfect to be told. Now I know they just have to be honest." The room fell silent. Then one by one, people began to cry. Not because they were sad, but because they finally felt seen. Keanu joined her on stage. Together they watched as strangers became family, as wounds found air. As silence turned into songs and laughter. They didn't need headlines. They didn't need fame. They had something better. They had impact. Months later, the quiet stage became a national movement. Cities opened their own chapters. People everywhere created spaces for truth. Schools, churches, libraries, coffee shops everywhere. Stories bloomed. Anna and Keanu didn't try to control it. They let it grow. And in one of the final interviews she ever gave, Anna said something that stayed with millions. "I thought I was alone until someone saw me. Now I want to spend the rest of my life helping others feel seen too. It's not with filters, not with perfection, just with truth. Because truth, when spoken with kindness, saves lives." The world didn't cheer. It listened. And that was enough. Years later, a little girl walked into the same old theater. Her hands were shaking, her voice uncertain, but she stepped onto the stage. Someone had told her this was a place where she could be real. She looked into the audience. Saw faces waiting not to judge her, but to hold her story. And with a deep breath, she began to speak. Outside, the city kept rushing. But inside that room, the quiet changed someone again, just like it had years ago. For a woman named Anna who had once sat alone on a set, believing no one saw her, out, until a man named Keanu chose to look closer and changed her life forever.